Hello everyone. I just wanted to make this video to give you guys a little bit of a run through of this thing called the Big Five. You're probably thinking, what the hell is that? Or even if you've heard it a lot, you may still be a little bit confused about what each of these elements are. And so I wanted to make this to kind of break it down and break it down in my way. And for each and every one of you, you're going to get it in your own way also. But what we've found is this is basically everything that keeps you looping back in to the reality from which you cannot change. You know, it's that universe of no choice that for a lot of us we tend to live in with a lot of the areas of our lives. So hopefully this will give you a little bit more of a sense of this. And what I've been doing is basically anything that is not light in my world, I use this tool. And the way I do that is, okay, all the big five creating this, I now destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all nine, shorts, boys, pervads and beyonds. But what I've found more helpful is actually breaking them down into these elements and looking at where that plays a part in this. Because for me, I tend to get a lot more change when I also have a bit more of a sense energetically of what it is in each area, rather than just kind of like, oh, poc and pod, you know, like, oh, I'll get rid of that. Like, no, actually getting really present with what it is and then changing it. So the first element of this is presumptive realities. Now, this is basically where you presume what reality is. You presume what you can have. You also presume what you can't have show up as reality, and then you go about creating it. So if you look at your life, for example, like one of the things I looked at with this a lot is money. You know, how many presumptive realities I have with money, with not having enough, with it's going to run out, with you know, I'm not that creative with it, with all kind of just the stuff that comes up. And they tend to be these they tend to be never anything that makes you heavy, but it's also something that's created from this artificial intelligence, which is basically everything that's right and wrong, everything that's good and bad, everything that's positive and negative. It's never about choice and it's never about question. So here's a good way I like to look at this is basically I know if I'm not in question, I'm in a presumptive reality. So there you go. That makes it pretty easy because you're like, oh, this is just the way it is, presumptive reality. Pock and pod that shit. Next part of this is need of reactive reality. And this is basically where you have a need for everyone and everything around you to react in an appropriate way so that you know you are getting what you presume, what you have as your presumptive reality. So if you look at that thing, let's just keep going on the thing with money, for example, is if you have these presumptive realities about, you know, you never have enough, you're always going to run out, you're whatever that is for you. And I know with what it's been for me is then I'd look for a need of reaction in the world around me to show me that my presumptive reality is correct. See, I can't make money. See, I don't have enough money, or whatever that is. The next part of this sounds like fun, huh? And basically, you'll start seeing how it keeps you in a bit of a loop. Next part of this is needs of reactive response systems, or what we've called as NOR slimes. Now, the way these work is this is the way that you will create yourself in response to the world around you. So notice where you kind of have those automatic responses where it kind of just seems like you're on, it's just, well, this is the way that I respond to this. So if I was to use money as an example, or kind of use what it is that you're getting a sense of with this, where you do it. And basically, let me say this, is we're all doing it everywhere, okay? So this is the way out of it. But if you look at money, for example, and you look for, okay, so my need of reactive response would be, well, I create myself as a way to prove to me, to prove to myself that this is just the way it is. You know, this is just how it shows up. This is the way that I respond to the world, is I respond in this way. Also, let me say this, is if this is not kind of making a lot of sense right now, don't worry about that. Kind of go with it energetically and see what it is for you. So the next part of this is, and I don't want to make this video 800 hours, so the next part of this is artificial intelligence actualizers, AI actualizers. And what this does is, notice when you're kind of like having some space in your world, and then all of a sudden something will show up. You'll talk to somebody, you'll see something on TV, you'll see something in social media, you'll have a thought, and then it's like, and then there goes the space. You're back into this heaviness and you're back into this sense of no choice. But what you're actually in is you're back into your presumptive reality. And this is where it keeps taking you back. So you go out of question, you go out of actual choice, and you go back into that rat race of going with the way everything's gone in the past and nothing's changing. And I'm not in question anymore, because why would I be in question? Because I am being actualized artificially. Here's the thing though, it may sound nuts, but you can all relate to that, right? I know I can. I know when I'm having space and then I'm like, oh, there's that thought of I can't, or there's that thing showing me basically my need of reactive realities, my need of reactive response systems, and there's me back in the presumptive reality. So that part. Next part, the fifth part of this is something called the fifth element. What this is about being the unfulfilled savior of mankind. Sounds kind of deep, right? But let me ask you this. How many of you came here to save people? How many of you came here to make your parents happy? You know, and then that didn't go very successfully, so you would make yourself wrong. And the thing that this does is it keeps you in a constant state of judgment of yourself. Keeps you in a constant state of judgment of never being enough, never being able to create the change that you desire, because for most of us, change has been based on being the savior. So one of the examples I have of this, and I remember as a kid in school, and it was actually when I just started high school, there was a lot of the kind of nerdy kids, which I was one of, getting bullied. And I remember like these kids would be bullied and stuff like that. And I would just, basically my point of view was I would do anything to take this pain out of their world. And I would, you know, I would take on all this pain. But the thing I didn't realize, it didn't create anything. They didn't get greater. I didn't get greater. But how many of you have also had that point of view? You know, when you're kind of around people and you're awesome, but it's like they're not, how much do you want to not be awesome so that they feel better about themselves? It doesn't actually create anything, which is the thing that keeps us stuck. So there are those fifth elements. That is what we affectionately call the big five. I hope this short-ish kind of explanation gives you a bit more of a sense with that, because now you can go through and go, oh, how many presumptive realities do I have with this relationship? How many presumptive realities do I have about finances? How many presumptive realities do I have about my body? How many presumptive realities do I have about my future? And for me, as you begin to get a sense of those presumptive realities, which is basically with everything, is then you'll begin to get a sense of where you have a need for the world around you to react a certain way so that that presumptive reality is true. So, and then the North Slimes, and then the AI actualizers, and then this fifth element, kind of, they all basically keep you in this rat race. So here's what you want to do is POC and pod them individually, go through them all and get a sense with it. But what I do now is, you know, when I get a sense to do that is how much of the big five am I using to create the limitations I'm choosing? And everything that is, times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pod and POC, all nine, shorts, boys, povads and beyonds. How much of the big five am I using to create the limitations with receiving I'm choosing? Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and POC, all nine, shorts, boys, povads and beyonds. But basically with that is anything that comes up that creates this sense of heaviness, that sense of yuck, stuck, what is going on in your world? All the big five creating this, I now destroy and uncreate it. So, you'll either use it or you won't, but I hope this made it a little easier for you to use it. So there you go. Have a phenomenal day, you beautiful creatures. Until next time, ciao.